But it's after 53 that MKUltra is all about mind control. Not only mind control, but they kind of had this idea of what's called a Manchurian candidate. Mm-hmm. Famously, after there's the movie Manchurian Candidate, which was inspired by this event of these captured soldiers in Korea who said America was committing war crimes.
Right.
And everyone said they were brainwashed. In Manchurian Candidate, it's kind of... MKUltra wasn't public at this point, but the basic story of the Manchurian Candidate is the story of MKUltra. It was this guy who was given these brainwashing drugs, and basically when he hears a code word, he turns into an assassin. More or less, that's what their goal was, to make someone who was a killer and didn't realize that they were a killer. Manchurian Candidate is kind of the first piece of media that's inspired by this, but like even as recently as like the new Marvel show Falcon and Winter Soldier, like Winter Soldier is basically he's a brainwashed assassin from this government experiment that when he hears a code word, he goes into assassin mode. Yeah. And more or less what they were saying in these fictional narratives was what the CIA was trying to do at the time. In the late 50s and into the 60s, there's Operation Midnight Climax, which we talked about on our Chaos video, which was basically... Not only was there these black sites internationally where we were experimenting on people, they were also doing it here in America. In federal prisons, famously Whitey Bulger was part of the MKUltra experiments. To a lesser extent in colleges, the poet Allen Ginsberg was a victim of MKUltra. And also you had Operation Midnight Climax, which there were two different kind of brothels. One was in New York City and one was in San Francisco.
At the clinic or whatever, right?
The Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic.
Where did they have the the two-sided window? Or whatever?
That was in an apartment in the Haight-Ashbury area, San Francisco. The medical clinic isn't mentioned at all in this book because there's no actual proof that the Free Medical Clinic was a part of MKUltra. Tom O'Neill in Chaos claims that it was,
and it closed right after his book.
But also, officially, MKUltra has ended in 1962. The Free Medical Clinic doesn't show up till years after that. So if you go by the official narrative, then the Free Medical Clinic in Haight-Ashbury couldn't have been part of MKUltra. There were CIA scientists there who were doing some LSD experiments, but it couldn't have been part of the same
CIA, thing. LSD.
Well,
it's the same shit.
Because also they never admitted that they were doing it on people there. They admitted that they said they were doing it on mice. So, but that's
like the CIA is not in the business of telling the truth to civilians. That's also, period, point blank.
Which is why Tom O'Neill in his book says it didn't end in 1962. That these experiments went on into the 60s, possibly into the 70s. I do say that if these LSD experiments continued past 1962, Sidney Gottlieb was no longer in charge. He had passed it off, possibly to Jolly West, who's a character in Chaos, who Jolly West was a CIA scientist who was basically underneath Sidney Gottlieb.